Hello and welcome, Ten here. Recently I've been playing a lot of Hades 2, and today I want to share one of my builds. I guess you could say this is a build, I guess you could say it's a successful run. Either way, I took Aspect of Momus, and I smacked Chronos in the face real good, so I'm going to talk about some of the choices I made, the boons I ended up with, and how things went as the run progressed. Now if this video does well, I absolutely expect to make more, because I had a ton of fun writing the script for this, and hopefully you have a ton of fun watching it. I've been playing a one-punch Medea build, some backstab and aspect of pan builds on the Sister Blades, and a Charon cast build on the Moonstone Axe. And so if any of that sounds interesting to you, do be sure to get subscribed, leave a like while you're down there to tell the algorithm to recommend this to other people, and why not share it with a friend? Because that's the best way to ensure more videos like this get made. But for now, let's get into things, starting with how the build ended up by the time I defeated Chronos. Aspect of Momus is pretty darn insane. This is a tier 12 clear where I gave bosses 30% health, and I still think it's my fastest Chronos fight ever. So, what does Aspect of Momus do? Two things. First, when you're at 50% health or below, your Omega special heals you. This I ended up not taking advantage of at all because towards the late game in the run, I ended up sealing all of my magic, couldn't use it at all, it was fully primed. But the other thing it does is your Omega and regular special get plus 30 power. In short, you're a special spam build. Then with double Moonshot, your special deals double the damage. Then I took Flutter Flourish and Swift Flourish. Swift to make sure I could spam specials more quickly, and Flutter because I wanted to get into melee range and did even more damage. Unfortunately, because I had a lot of boons, I didn't end up landing any palms of power on the Flutter Flourish, otherwise my damage would have been even more insane. Even then, it felt positively unfair. I was melting stuff left, right, and center. Now early on, I was also using Storm Ring, especially to augment my clear. This is a boon from Zeus that is very powerful. I may go with an Aspect of Charon Zeus build for this in the future and make a video on that, because I've been having quite a lot of fun using it. In short, it's generically very, very powerful. Something else that I took was Island Getaway, where I take less damage from nearby foes, 15%, makes me really, really tanky. It's part of why I didn't take very much damage, especially since I was using Knuckle Bones. And my boons from Aphrodite treat all foes as nearby. So I no longer had to stand near anyone to get the full Flutter Flourish. The 150% damage if you can get Island Getaway is absolutely insane. That said, in terms of requirements to play this build, while combining both Aphrodite and Poseidon is very good, I wouldn't say it's mandatory. I would say Aphrodite, very, very powerful. You can go with any other damage-focused boon though, Demeter or Hera, for example. On the other hand, you could also go with a more utility stacking focused setup with something like Hestia, get a bunch of Scorches and pop them for damage if you're able to obtain a high rarity version of that boon. Under Arcana, pretty simple. Eternity for Death's Defiance didn't end up doing anything because I never even died once. Boatman to start out with money, Titan for more health and magic, and the Sorcerers to give me a time slow, which didn't end up being very useful except in the early game. I probably should have taken faster sprint, but I wasn't planning to use my Omega moves as little as I did. The build just ended up being more powerful than I expected. And then for Vows, enemies had 30% health. There's a Revenant, that's kind of free. Next region stuff also, I won't say kind of free because it can be a little bit awkward, especially for Armored, but not the worst. And then Vow of Arrogance, which is why all of my magic ended up getting locked. My idea going into this was, if I had Aspect of Momus and I could get Aphrodite, I'd stay near enemies and absolutely shred them. Turns out, that's a perfect plan, and it went really, really well. So, things to look out for. Aphrodite, you can even bring her Keepsake to ensure that she appears in the first area. I did that with one of my Keepsake attempts before swapping it out later for the good old Knuckle Bones. You know, might as well take 15% less damage from a boss. Not that I really needed it, I had a bunch of other damage reductions and plenty of health and death defiance to go. Then beyond that, I also used some minor utility things, such as getting an extra Arcana card activated. But going in for Aphrodite first, I'd very much recommend it since you can't get any other comparable damage bonuses as something like 150% more. Then getting something like Swift Flourish really feels good in terms of quality of life, definitely helps on bosses, not too bad on common enemies. Double Moonshot, if you can get a hammer upgrade for it, super, super, super important. Side of that, you don't really need anything else to play this build, though I would take Aspect of Momus up to rank 5, so that you get a maximum plus 30 power on both your special and Omega special. So now that I've shown you how the run ended and talked a little bit about the build, let's get into some gameplay. I began this run with a boon from Poseidon. I wasn't really going into this planning to record a video or showcase a build or anything like that. I was just playing the game, having fun, and happened to be recording while I was going. Next time I'm probably going to take some more detailed notes so I don't have to look over my footage and do it after the fact. But in short, I grabbed the attack boon. This way I could slam enemies into walls, and I knew that the attack boon was plenty to carry me in the early game. In hindsight, beginning with Aphrodite's keepsake instead of Circe's would have given me better odds of obtaining everything I wanted. But honestly, I didn't have many issues in Erebus anyway. As I progressed through, I was offered a Hex, and I grabbed the heal. This is generally speaking my go-to. You can't miss with it, and also recovering health is always good. Plus, some of the enhancements are absolutely crazy, and you can turn it into a mana battery. Some of my most successful runs have specifically been turning this into a mana/power battery. After that, I continued clearing, and found out that Zeus was the second Olympian within my run. So I grabbed Storm Ring, because this cast is absolutely insane. And between the Poseidon attack and Zeus cast, I figured I'd be pretty safe to just build out defenses and focus on the late game boons that I wanted for my build, rather than worrying about anything else. After all, the Zeus cast is strong enough to carry runs all by itself, so it was pretty nice to have in my back pocket. And sure enough, taking it into the Hecate battle, I had no problems. I just cast spammed, it was very easy, and I had a lot of life coming out of my first area, due to pretty good luck with Centaur Hearts and a lucky boon from Chaos. So all things considered, the boss went down pretty quickly. I was actually kind of surprised since I hadn't invested too much into damage boons. Then again, that is the Zeus cast for you. So with that all wrapped up, going into the second zone, I did swap to Aphrodite's Keepsake, because I absolutely wanted that boon for my special to do as much damage at close range as possible. From here, I was liberally spamming my attack to crowd control enemies, especially after armor breaking them, and if they were an armored foe or just particularly dangerous, then I'd drop the Zeus cast on them and pretend they didn't exist. Sure enough, after the Zeus cast did its work, they simply wouldn't exist. Because I'd picked up so much life early on, and because I was grabbing a little bit more, I did feel safe. I had 2 Death's Defiance, that scales in terms of your max health, and so I felt like, alright, all I have to do, get through these bosses, get down to Tartarus, focus on my defenses, grab that Aphrodite boon, and I'll be good. What I wasn't thinking about was picking up a Daedalus Hammer. But you know what? I found one. And I also got double Moonshot. So it was time to dominate everything, because if you're playing Momus, double Moonshot doubles your damage. And trust me, even without double Moonshot, this build does plenty of damage. So I felt really confident now. For example, I was range spamming to destroy this mini-boss. Now normally this armored eel, complete pain. I'll end up getting a little bit too close or a little bit too far, get hit by something, take some damage from his swipe that he seems to just pause for a little bit longer than I expect. I had almost no issues killing him this time. I was able to clean him up because shooting range from a distance is a perfectly safe strategy. And good news, there's my Flutter Flourish. It's even rare. And so with that secure, all I was expecting to get in future runs, at least in terms of damage upgrades, was maybe some Palms of Power. Spoiler alert, even though I did find some Palms of Power, they never picked Flutter Flourish. But upon reaching Scylla, I wanted to do a DPS test. So once the second phase started, I decided I'm just going to stand still and absolutely blast until I can delete one of them, or until I get deleted. Well, it didn't take long to figure out that yes, I was fully capable of just straight deleting them. This was a really good sign for my damage, and I was very happy with the build's performance up until this point. Just to quickly reiterate, the important boons that I had right now: Number 1, Daedalus upgrade, double Moonshot. You fire 2 seeking projectiles. Number 2, Flutter Flourish. You deal 150% increased damage at close range. So stand on an enemy and, well, destroy them. That was exactly my plan, and that's exactly what I did from here on out. Early in the fields, I had a particularly easy run because I found a lot of event rooms, and very few enemies. Overall, this does mean I'm continuing to run with a few less rewards than I might otherwise have, as you don't really find the minor reward equivalents in the events, but the events also allow you to get some powerful and unique things which you wouldn't otherwise have access to. And since my build was already feeling really strong, I wasn't too worried about this and was actually kind of happy to find the events. So then I quickly made it through this area, and again, deleted Cerberus. I didn't have too many issues. I got hit a little bit here and there, but that was mostly just me being greedy as I was trying to overlap both my Omega cast and also spend a lot of time in melee range casting stuff without dodging properly. Turns out as long as you dodge properly, Cerberus doesn't do too much, but if you get too greedy and spend a little bit of extra time spamming your special, then sometimes you will take a little bit of damage. Nothing that a couple fountains wouldn't do anything to fix, though. I have to say, going into Tartarus, I was pretty darn confident. But this is where things got interesting, because I realized there was a slight flaw in my build, and also I made a mistake towards the end that could have cost me significantly if the build wasn't just so darn strong. First up, I swapped for Knucklebones, because a 15% damage reduction helps when I'm bad at dodging stuff. While clearing the early rooms, I noticed a slight flaw in my build. My cast was single target. My special was single target, and my attack barely did any damage anymore. So while I could clear very weak low-level enemies with my attack, I was mostly just spamming my special, as that would absolutely delete stuff. But it meant that when the thing summoned adds, I'd kind of get overwhelmed where I'd have to either prioritize single target damage on the thing that was a threat summoning the adds, or use something like my attack and actually kill the adds with that. But shortly after that, I got a really interesting boon. I hadn't gotten this before, so it's not like I planned around it or anything, but I hit Island Getaway, which is just so absurd for this build. This means that Poseidon and Aphrodite is in fact the correct combo, because it means you do full damage without needing to point blank enemies. I cannot understate just how insanely powerful this is. While it is certainly by no means necessary to enable the build, it is so effective that I would absolutely recommend it if you can get it. So if you happen to see Aphrodite, grab Poseidon's keepsake. If you happen to see Poseidon, grab Aphrodite's keepsake. Otherwise, maybe grab both of them. Sacrifice keepsake value in the first 2 zones. That way you'll be able to set yourself up with this awesome combo. From this point, I was able to safely kill enemies from a distance, get permanent magic regen, and much, much more. Though I did often still go into melee just because I'm more comfortable dodging certain attacks from certain enemies in melee range. Then shortly after this, as I continued to clear, I made my other small mistake. I was offered another duo boon, and I took it immediately. The problem is I only had 22 magic left, and as it turns out, you can absolutely prime your entire magic bar. Sadly, I realized this too late, and luckily it didn't matter for the final encounter, but it completely locked me out of using my Omega cast, which is quite a bit of damage that I was losing out on. Because even without any sort of build-arounds or special upgrades, the Omega cast was still doing a significant amount of single-target damage. But hey, sometimes you've just got to roll with the punches. So, with that said, it was Chronos time, and short of getting crit backstabs on the daggers, I've rarely seen him drop this quick. It was absolutely hilarious to watch his health evaporate, and I don't just mean the burst of damage from the start, due to the knuckle bones. Again, the main reason that I was sticking close to him is simply because that's my preference when it comes to dodging his attacks. Whenever there was something that felt dangerous to me and I didn't want to be close, I simply barraged him from a distance. Remember, your projectiles don't really off-screen too much, so you still have to be relatively close and see the boss if you want to damage them. Now, I've fought Chronos a good few times now, and this is by far the smoothest win that I've had. I didn't really have to worry about too many defenses. In fact, I almost wonder if I could have just stood still and spammed my special button and burned out his health before he burned down mine. At least in the first phase, I think this would have been absolutely fully viable. I just would have had to move away occasionally and deal with adds whenever he did his obnoxious transition phases. Towards the second half of phase 1, the fight did definitely slow down a bit, and I think there's 2 reasons for this. Number 1, as Chronos started using more of his combo attacks, I was treating him more carefully. That meant more time spent sprinting or running away, and less time spent dealing damage to him. Also, he liked to teleport away, shield himself, and summon adds. And just to be safe, I wanted to deal with those as well. I think if I'd really just focused in and DPS the boss while ignoring adds, as soon as his shields fell, I probably would have been able to kill him much, much faster. That said, damage was absolutely not one of my concerns here. Health was. My damage already felt absurd. I felt like all I needed is a few seconds of burst to take him down and push him into the next phase. And as it turns out, that's exactly what happened. I was able to very smoothly and easily push him into the next phase, and I barely even took any damage, which I'm going to count as a win because I've never done that in a Chronos phase 1 before. Now, I'll be honest, in phase 2, I did get a little bit greedy. I say that, but I did respect some of his big scary mechanics, like the insta-kill circle that hits for 999. Keep in mind I had 2 damage reductions, meaning he wasn't exactly going to be hitting very hard. But aside of the fact that he has a few insta-kill moves that just have to be respected, I honestly felt like I could just stand there and face tank him. I decided to play more cautiously because at this point I'd come all this way, I was on Fear 12, you should take these things seriously, and so I did. I also even took a little bit of time to burn down his adds, not because I was too worried about the damage that they could do, but I was worried about killing them at the wrong time and getting stuck in one of his insta-kill moves, since the Hourglass adds, when killed, do create a time freeze bubble that you can get stuck in. This went without issue, and then I was back to full-on burn on Chronos. Again, my cast would have added more single-target damage, but I certainly didn't need it. This made for an incredibly smooth and fun run. As I fight Chronos more, I've come to realize that his second phase is very much about positioning, i.e. where you stand really matters, because for most dangerous things, what's going to absolutely insta-kill you or wreck your run isn't something the boss himself is doing, it isn't a skill he's using, it's something on the floor. So I positioned carefully, and then took Chronos out using my ranged damage. So that was my experience completely destroying Chronos using the aspect of Momus, a little help from Aphrodite, and a little bit of help from Poseidon. Oh, Daedalus also did his part. I ended up taking a very similar build into an overworld run as well. That time I ended up with Zeus on my main boon, and I was trying out Blitz. And I took two things away from that. Number one, even without a boon that's primarily boosting your single target damage, Aspect of Momus does an absurd amount of single target damage. And number two, I'm not entirely sold on Blitz being a good thing to enable on your special for a build like this. Sure, it adds a lot of flat damage, much like Doom did in the original Hades 1, but at that point, you might as well have something that scales your damage and put Blitz on your attack, because that way you can use your attack to blitz the enemy and then trigger it with a massive amount of damage from spamming your special. Good old 1-2 punch combo. But hey, it still ended up being frighteningly effective. And so now I'm curious, what's the best run that you've done, either in terms of fear or just in terms of an awesome build that you found, on the Aspect of Momus or the Witch's Staff Tiskira? And if you haven't played with the Aspect of Momus before, then check out my weapon overview to learn more about it. That said, if you want to see more videos just like this one, do be sure to get subscribed. If this video does well, I'll absolutely be making more videos documenting my runs in the future. Because like I said at the start, I actually had quite a bit of fun putting this video together. Though don't be surprised if the style changes a little bit in the future. Now before I go, a special thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support. Link to support is below, and you might even see your name on screen like these fine folks here. Also, thanks to everyone who watched to the end. I'm glad you enjoyed the video, good luck with the build, hopefully it performs as well for you as it did for me, and I'll see you in the next one.